Okay, today we're going to talk about what is biology. Biology is the study of life. Bio means life, and ology means the study of. But how do we know what life is? How do we know what's alive and what's not? Today we're going to discuss the 7 characteristics of life. But before we do that, let's focus on some vocabulary. The first word is abiotic. A means without, biotic means life. Biotic refers to living things. Only living things show all the characteristics of life. So hopefully you can determine which one of our pictures, the rock or the plant, is abiotic and which one is biotic. Yes, you're right. Good job. The rock is abiotic and the plant is biotic. So we have a mnemonic device that is going to help you remember the 7 characteristics of living things. And that device is Mr. Gore hates cheese. The M represents made of cells. R, reproduce, or passing on your DNA. G, grow and develop. O, obtain and use energy. R, respond to the environment. H, homeostasis. And C, change over time, which refers to organisms adapting and evolving. So our first characteristic of life is that all living things are made of cells. So cells are the basic unit of life, and all cells come from pre-existing cells. These 3 statements compose the cell theory. So if an organism is made up of one cell, it is considered to be unicellular. That one cell can complete all of the life activities. And our example here is bacteria. Organisms that are made up of more than one cell are called multicellular. The cells in a multicellular organism work together in order to perform a function. And of course, humans are an example of a multicellular organism. However, bacteria, which are unicellular, cover most of the earth. They are found on lots of different surfaces. You can find bacteria inside of you in your intestines. You can also find lots of bacteria in other places on the earth. Multicellular organisms have different types of cells within them that work together to help perform a function. Humans are comprised of about 85 different types of cells. Can you name some? I'm sure you named some of these cells. Nerve cells, which transmit messages from your brain to other parts of the body. Muscle cells, bone cells, reproductive cells, white blood cells, red blood cells, and there are many others. There are 2 types of cells that exist on the earth. Prokaryotic cells, and I want you to write down a couple things about this. I want you to write down that the prefix pro means before, and karyo means nucleus. So a prokaryotic cell has no nucleus. Bacteria is an example of something that is a prokaryotic cell. A eukaryotic cell, eu means true, and of course karyo means nucleus, so they have a nucleus. They have organelles separated by membranes. Plants, animals, fungus, and protists are all made up of cells that are eukaryotic. Here's a picture of a prokaryotic cell. It does not have a nucleus, it just has DNA that free floats inside the cell. And then you have a eukaryotic cell, of course, which has a membrane-bound nucleus. So, using your knowledge of the vocabulary words that we just went over, pause the video and see if you can complete some of the blanks. Okay, so hopefully you paused this video and tried some of the things on your own. So let's start off with this picture here in the upper left. This is an animal cell. Here is the nucleus. It has a true nucleus, so therefore it is a eukaryotic cell. This is an organism that is also a eukaryote because I can see the nucleus right here, and it is only made up of one cell, so it is unicellular. The name of this organism is the amoeba. Okay? This organism is a blowfish or an animal. So because it's an animal, it is made up of eukaryotic cells, so it's a eukaryote, and it's made up of more than one cell, so it is multicellular. The last organism is a bacteria, also known as a prokaryote because it does not have a true nucleus. Humans, of course, are made up of eukaryotic cells. We have lots of different cells that work together in order to perform a function. Characteristic number 2, reproduce. Organisms, an individual does not have to reproduce in order to survive, but it is essential for the survival of the species for reproduction to happen. Reproduction's purpose is basically to pass DNA on to the next generation. DNA, of course, are the instructions for giving you your characteristics. Heredity is defined as the passing of the genetic code or the DNA from one parent to another, or to the offspring. There are two types of reproduction. The first type of reproduction is asexual reproduction. This type of reproduction only involves one parent and results in genetically identical offspring. So we have a couple of examples here on the slide. The first one here is bacteria. You start off with one parent and the bacterial cell divides, and then you end up with two cells that are genetically identical. Sweet potatoes can also reproduce in this way. The sweet potato, the underground roots break off and then grow a new potato. And your last example is a small water animal called a hydra, where you can see that they will have this growth off of the side, and then it will break off and it will be a new hydra that is exactly like the original. Of course, sexual reproduction is the second type of reproduction in which you are probably more familiar with. And the sexual reproduction, you have two parents, so we have two cells, an egg and a sperm, that join together in order to create a new organism. Our third characteristic of life is grow and develop. So think about or talk to a partner close to you. What do you think the difference is between growing and developing? Right. Growing is a change in size. Developing is a change in structure and function. Unicellular organisms grow, multicellular organisms grow and develop. They change over time and they develop new characteristics. So one of our great examples for developing is insects, because they have a life cycle and they change throughout their life. They both grow and they develop different characteristics. So here's our example. A mosquito starts out as an egg, and then it develops into a larva form, and then a pupa form, and then an adult. Then the adult reproduces and lays eggs. This is an example of developing. Our fourth characteristic is obtain and use energy. Now, all living things need energy in order to do work, in order to walk or sleep or just do their normal daily activities. And there are times when we hear somebody say, oh, that person must have a high metabolism because they can eat anything and not gain weight. However, metabolism refers to all the chemical reactions inside our bodies, okay, that break down materials. So all organisms have to go through the process of metabolism and get energy. So on this diagram, we see autotrophs, which are plants, take their energy directly from the sun. Heterotrophs, which are animals, they are consumers. They must consume or eat something else in order to get their energy. So, sorry about that. Our example is the food chain. So, food chain shows you the flow of energy in an ecosystem. And the flow of energy is very important in an ecosystem. So it starts off with the producer and the producer using the sun to absorb its energy. And then the grasshopper will eat the producer and get energy from the grass, and the frog will eat the grasshopper, and the energy will just flow through the food chain. And then finally, we also have decomposers, which will eat anything that dies throughout the process. Okay, we're almost done. A few more to go. Number 5, respond to the environment. Organisms respond to the environment every day, many times a day. And so a stimulus is something that we respond to or an organism responds to. So let's take a look at our examples and you try to come up with an answer. A, how do you respond to light when you leave a dark room? Well, you probably squint, okay, when you go into the light. How do plants respond to sunlight? Oftentimes you'll see plants bend toward the light and grow in the direction of the light. C, what does a glowfish do when threatened by a predator? We saw glowfish earlier in the PowerPoint, and it will puff its body up and make itself look bigger in order to try to scare the predator away. Okay, let's read these 5 statements, and I want you to label if you think it's a stimulus or a response. Stop the video and then complete the statements. Okay, here we go. Number 1, shark swims towards the direction of the smell of blood. Smell of blood is the stimulus, and of course the shark swimming is the response. Number 2, human blushes due to embarrassing comment. Embarrassing comment is the stimulus, human blushing is the response. Number 3, a bat hears the flapping wings of an insect. Flapping wings of an insect is the stimulus, but we don't know what the bat does, so there is no response. Number 4, a person jerks hand away from a hot stove. I'm sure we've all experienced something similar to this. The hot stove is the stimulus, the person jerking the hand away is the response. Number 5, a dog chases a running rabbit. The running rabbit is the stimulus, and the dog chasing it is the response. Here are the answers just in case you missed it. Number 6, maintaining homeostasis. Homeostasis is the ability of our cells and tissues and organisms to maintain a stable environment regardless of what's going on the outside. So one of the things that we consider to be homeostatic is our internal body temperature, because you don't even think about trying to maintain it, your body just does it. Okay? So, for example, when your body is cold, what do you do? When your body is hot, what do you do? Of course, when you're cold, you shiver, and when you're hot, you sweat. Shivering is your muscles contracting, and that is helping to keep your body warm and warm your body up on the inside. Sweating, when you're hot, of course, you need to get rid of some of that temperature, and so then you sweat. Both of these things are done in order to keep your body temperature at 98.6 degrees, regardless of what's going on the outside. This is just a diagram that shows you how your brain communicates with the rest of your body in order to help maintain your body temperature. 2 other examples of homeostasis: the regulation of blood sugar levels, which some of us have issues with. Some of us have more trouble than others with the blood sugar level. Many of us know people who are diabetic who have difficulty controlling their blood sugar level, and they need to take insulin in order to help their body do that. Another example is the regulation of water balance in your blood. And of course, we do this every day. If your water balance is low, then you're thirsty and you want to go to the water fountain and get a drink. And when your blood or your water balance is high, then you feel the need to go to the bathroom and urinate. Our last characteristic is evolutionary adaptation. So if you were farther away, you'd probably have more difficulty seeing these animals. But as you can see on this side, you see a frog that's blending in with his surroundings and the rocks. And then this picture is a pygmy seahorse who's blending in with the coral. Now, these organisms have come to look this way because of hundreds, if not thousands of years of evolutionary change. A change in their DNA. The organisms have adapted and changed to better survive in their environment. Now, an adaptation is something that is inherited. So that means that the information is given through the DNA molecule. Okay? So sometimes students say, well, I adapt to the cold by putting on a sweatshirt. That's not really what we're talking about here, because when we talk about an adaptation, we're talking about something that is inherited as well as a characteristic that's taken a very long time to develop. Our last example of adaptation is something that you may have heard of, which is Darwin's finches. Charles Darwin studied finches on different islands, and he came to realize that the beak size of the finch related to the food source that it eats. So that's another example of an adaptation. It took a long time for those birds, the finches, to develop beaks that were specialized to the food that they eat. So those are the 7 characteristics of living things. If you've missed any portion of this video, for notes, please feel free to go back. If you have all of your notes, then you can move on to the next assignment in Schoology. Thank you.